to international pressure and sent the armed forces in to help fight the fires there. The U.S. sent a super tanker to Bolivia to help tame the flames in that part of the rainforest. Now, to put in perspective just how big this rainforest is, take a look at this. It's 2.2 million square miles. That means you could fit 30 Washington states inside it. And just in the month of August, the Amazon has had 26,000 fires. And if you start at the beginning of the year in January, we're talking 156,000, the highest number in a decade. But Global Forest Watch says this isn't the worst fire season on record there. That was in the early 2000s, and Brazil ended up changing policies as a result of that. They say what's most important is what happens now, because while August broke records, the busy fire season there is actually in September.